Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Browns camp says he's told that I'm sorry, Jeremy Fowler said that he's told that Deshaun Watson hit it off with Todd Monken, who's got an offensive concept, some elements that Watson wants to run or has run in the past, and he's been best at. Obviously, good news for the Browns fans. Their offense starting to get a little bit of momentum going. Is this something or nothing for the Browns?
Just watch Shady McCoy, LaShawn McCoy, a man who has been one of Shedeur Sanders' loudest public supporters since before the draft. Sit in that chair, look dead into that camera, and tell you with his own mouth that his sources inside the Cleveland Browns building say Deshaun Watson is rolling, Deshaun Watson looks good, and Deshaun Watson is going to start over Shedeur Sanders. Not a Watson fanboy, not some troll journalist looking for clicks. Shady. The guy who was cheering for Shedeur before most of us even knew what number he was going to wear, and even HE could not spin this situation into something positive for the kid. What is actually happening inside that building in Berea, Ohio? Welcome back. I'm Dre Fiver. This is Dre Reports. And today we are going all the way inside the Cleveland Browns quarterback war. The sources, the narratives, the money, the media warfare, and exactly why the most controversial decision in the NFL right now could define or destroy Shedeur Sanders' entire career before it even begins. We are not here to sugarcoat anything. We are not here to protect anybody's feelings. This is a no-filter zone. Let's get it. Let me give you the full picture of what has been going down in Cleveland because this story has layers that the casual fan might be missing. It started with voluntary minicamp back in late April. According to the Cleveland Browns official recap from day one of voluntary veteran minicamp on April 21st, head coach Todd Monken confirmed that Shedeur Sanders was the first quarterback to take 11 on 1-1 snaps, and the plan was always for Shedeur to get a few more reps, with both Sanders and Watson working with the first-team unit. Great, right? Shedeur first. Shedeur getting the looks. The narrative felt positive. And then, like clockwork, the other shoe dropped. According to a report from Cleveland.com, by day 2 of that voluntary minicamp, Deshaun Watson was the first quarterback to receive first-team reps and wound up getting the most of anyone, with the report specifically noting Watson had earned the QB1 snaps by looking the part of a starting quarterback. One day. It took one day for the entire energy to flip. That is not a quarterback competition. That is a choreographed narrative being fed to the media, and I want you to sit with that. Now come forward to the days just before OTAs officially opened. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler goes on SportsCenter and drops the Watson-Monken connection report, saying Watson has hit it off with the new head coach, that Monken runs an offensive concept with elements Watson has excelled at before, and that Watson would be a factor with first-team reps at OTAs. According to Fowler's SportsCenter report, Watson has already made an impression during practices, and has reportedly connected well with head coach Todd Monken, particularly because parts of Monken's offensive scheme are similar to systems where Watson previously found success. Dre's take on this? The ESPN report from Fowler is the establishment cosign. When Jeremy Fowler goes on national television with a Watson report like that, it signals to the entire league that the people inside the Browns building are comfortable with the idea of Watson as their starter. That is not a coincidence. That is a message being sent. And the message is, Shedeur, you are going to have to fight for everything. The speakeasy clip in more detail, the full conversation where LaShawn McCoy's co-hosts respond to his Watson source bomb, and where the panel debates whether the gap between Watson and Shedeur's ceiling is real. Specifically, the section where McCoy acknowledges Watson has been bad, but insists his sources say it is different this time. The push and pull at the table is the drama here. Now let's go back to that speakeasy clip because the full conversation is even more revealing than the cold open moment. McCoy is sitting there and he says something that I think is absolutely critical. He says, and I'm paraphrasing from his exact words because this is not a quote I can put in his mouth. He says he wanted Shedeur to play because Shedeur is younger, fresher, and represents something new. But his sources are telling him a different story. The most honest thing McCoy said in that entire conversation was when he basically admitted he did not believe it himself at first. He said Watson had been so bad that he could not accept what his sources were telling him. And then he said those 5 words that should terrify every Shedeur Sanders supporter. But they say he rolling, past the doubt, past the resume, past the injury history, past everything. His sources kept coming back to the same conclusion. Watson. Starting. 2026. And then, and this is the part that broke me, one of his co-hosts lays out the coaching logic for why Todd Monken might actually prefer Watson. The argument goes like this. Monken's offense is young everywhere. When the Browns hit the practice fields for OTAs, it will be the first full look at all 4 quarterbacks participating together, and the roster around them is packed with young, developing players at multiple positions. Harold Fannin at tight end is a second-year player. The new rookie receivers are first-year players. The offensive line has been completely reconstructed. The argument being made on that speakeasy panel is that Todd Monken might not want to put a second-year quarterback behind center for a group of first- and second-year skill players who are all learning at the same time. He might want a veteran presence who has been through the wars and will not be rattled by the turbulence of an NFL season. That is a legitimate football argument, I'll give it that. But here is my counter-argument, and I stand on this fully. What veteran presence are we actually talking about? Since joining Cleveland, Watson has completed 61.2% of his passes and thrown just 19 touchdowns against 12 interceptions in 19 games. That is not a stabilizing veteran presence. That is a guy who barely has an NFL sample size larger than a single good season for a starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson has not been a functioning, healthy, consistent NFL starter since he was in Houston. That is not leadership experience. That is the absence of experience at this level. Mary Kay Cabot's TV or video segment, either a Browns media availability or an ESPN Cleveland appearance, where she explains why Watson has the inside track to start over Shedeur after voluntary minicamp. This is the report that started everything, and having her face and voice on screen makes it undeniable for the viewer. Let's talk about the Mary Kay Cabot report, because this is the document that set the internet ablaze, and it deserves its proper examination. According to Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, Deshaun Watson has the upper hand over Shedeur Sanders and the inside track to the starting job following the team's first voluntary minicamp, with Watson receiving the lion's share of first-team reps. Now, some people in the comments of various videos tried to wave this report away. They said it was one reporter, that minicamp means nothing, that it is way too early. And to a degree, they are right. It is early. As one Browns-focused analyst noted, Mary Kay Cabot's initial report following the 3-day voluntary minicamp felt premature at the time, given that there were only a handful of spring practices with no real pads, no live contact, and limited competitive settings. That is a fair critique. I will not pretend otherwise. But here is the thing. Cabot does not write that report without sources. She does not put Watson's name at the top of that depth chart without conversations with people who work in that building. The report may feel premature, but it did not come from nowhere. And the speakeasy panel addressed the elephant in the room that most people are dancing around. When McCoy said, "I think he'll start just because of the money," he was saying the quiet part loud. According to LaShawn McCoy, speaking on the Speakeasy podcast, money is the defining factor in this quarterback competition, saying the Browns spent that kind of money on Watson and ownership wants to see results, adding that front office egos play a role because nobody wants to look like they do not know what they are doing. He is right. Think about the math here. Watson is heading into the final year of his contract, but he will count a combined $86.2 million in dead money against the Browns' salary cap in 2027 and 2028, meaning the financial damage of this trade haunts Cleveland for years beyond whenever Watson leaves. The Browns have already paid this man. They have already traded away 3 first-round picks. The damage is done, the bill is paid, the assets are gone. At this point, the only thing that can even partially redeem that decision is if Watson plays and plays well, and the only way he can do that is if he starts. So ownership pushes the front office. The front office pushes the coaching staff. And suddenly, a legitimate open competition starts to look a little less open. And if you needed confirmation that ownership is behind this Watson push, look no further than the comments coming out of the front office and the ownership group. Browns co-owner Jimmy Haslam said at the league meetings, "Deshaun has a great chance, fresh start, offensive-minded coach, who has in his past been able to work with all kinds of different quarterbacks and make them successful. So Deshaun has a great chance to do that now." This is the man who previously called the Watson trade a big swing and a miss, and now he is back at the podium talking about Deshaun Watson's great chance. The psychological gymnastics required to get from big swing and a miss to great chance in the span of a few months is Olympic level. But wait, it gets richer. J.W. Johnson, the managing partner of the Haslam Sports Group that owns the Browns, acknowledged the fan frustration that could come with Watson returning to the starting role, saying, "He's got nothing to lose. And if he's our starting quarterback, I know that there are people that probably won't be supportive, but they should be as supportive as they can be. And if he plays great, then awesome. If he doesn't, then it is what it is, and we're looking ahead to the future." I want you to really hear what was just said. The managing partner of your football team just told you, The fan, the ticket buyer, the jersey purchaser, the person whose money literally funds this operation, that if you are not supportive of Deshaun Watson starting, that is your problem. They should be as supportive as they can be. That is ownership looking down from the ivory tower and telling the dog pound to fall in line. And if it doesn't work out, well then, it is what it is. That is how little they respect you as a fan base right now. That is how far removed from reality the people running this franchise have become. Now I want to bring in something from that speakeasy panel conversation that actually gave Emmy pause, because I am not here to be a one-sided machine. One of McCoy's co-hosts made a point about Watson's actual peak career numbers that a lot of people have forgotten. And when those numbers came out on the screen during that discussion, even the most die-hard Shedeur supporters had to sit back for a second. The panel brought up Watson's 2020 season. The man threw for 4,823 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. And they pointed out that during that stretch, Watson was being mentioned in the same breath as Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, that is not mythology. That is a real season that actually happened in the NFL. And the specific argument being floated around that panel, and around the Browns building apparently, is that Kevin Stefanski's system actively worked against Watson's strengths. According to a source close to Watson, speaking to ESPN's Daniel Oyefusi and Jeremy Fowler, the way Stefanski wanted Watson to play did not fit his style, and Monken runs a more spread-oriented scheme that could play to Watson's strengths. So the theory is, new coach, better scheme fit, fresh Achilles, hungry mindset, lighter body weight, motivated to redeem himself. Maybe, and I have to respect that theory enough to address it honestly. But here is where Dre Fiver separates himself from the hype machine, and I need you to stay with me on this. It has been over 5 full seasons since Watson last played quality football, when he led the NFL in passing yards in 2020 and earned a 3rd consecutive Pro Bowl selection. In those 5+ years, Watson has been suspended, had 2 shoulder surgeries, torn his Achilles once, torn it again after the first repair, and missed essentially 2 full back-to-back seasons. The speakeasy panel said it themselves, right there on camera. They want to believe, but they cannot believe yet. McCoy said it directly. He got to show me. The co-host said it too. Can't get fooled a 3rd time. That is the authentic voice of someone who has watched this Watson experiment fail repeatedly, and it should be the voice in the back of every Cleveland decision-maker's head when they hand that man those first-team reps. Now let me give Shedeur his proper respect in this video because the kid deserves it. In 8 games as a starter last season, Sanders completed 120 of 212 passes for 1,400 yards, with 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, while also rushing for 169 yards and a score on 21 carries. Yes, 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I am not here to pretend that ratio is acceptable for a long-term starter. It is not. But context is everything. This was a 5th-round pick thrown into a starting role he was never supposed to have on an NFL team with a broken offense, with an offensive line that was being put together with scotch tape and prayers, working through multiple coordinator changes, and adjusting to an NFL game he had approximately 0 weeks of true starter preparation for. He competed, he showed toughness, he showed arm talent on multiple occasions, and he finished the season winning back-to-back games against division opponents. According to Bleacher Report, during OTA workouts, Sanders impressed coaches, specifically finding wide receiver Caden Davis in a tight window during red zone drills, with offensive coordinator Tommy Rees saying he has worked his tail off. Worked his tail off, that quote from Tommy Rees. The offensive coordinator is not a throwaway line. Coordinators give those kinds of quotes to players they are invested in. And Rees went further, noting that the mental side of the game has visibly improved for Shedeur. According to offensive coordinator Tommy Rees via the Associated Press, Sanders has shown significant improvement in his mental processing of the offense, saying that when a player puts in the work on the mental side, the game starts to slow down and allows them to focus on making completions. The game is slowing down for Shedeur Sanders in his 2nd year, with a new coaching staff, after working his tail off all offseason. That is exactly what you want to hear. That is a developing franchise quarterback. That is not a player you bench for a 30-year-old man who has torn the same Achilles twice. Here is the thing that keeps me from completely writing off Shedeur's chances, and it comes from the most reliable Browns beat source in the business. ESPN's Daniel Oyefusi, who is on the ground, who is inside those practices, who is talking to coaches and players daily, has been far more measured than the Watson hype machine. According to ESPN's Daniel Oyefusi, Head coach Todd Monken is monitoring both Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders closely during OTAs, with no official starter named and no set order atop the depth chart. Official Browns OTA Day 1. That is not the language of a done deal. That is the language of a genuine competition, or at least a competition that is being presented to the public as genuine, which means there is still a window for Shedeur to climb. And Oyefusi went further, specifically pushing back on the narrative that Watson's starting job is already locked in. The transcript that inspired this video mentioned that Oyefusi stated directly that reports of Watson looking incredible and clearly being the starter were not accurate. That is significant. That is the reporter who has the closest access to the Cleveland coaching staff going out of his way to pump the brakes on a specific piece of information that was being spread around the sports media ecosystem. According to head coach Todd Monken, speaking after the first day of minicamp, the competition at quarterback is genuinely open, and while the reps will not be distributed equally, the evaluation process will give every quarterback a legitimate chance to make their case. But, and here is where Dre Fiver has to keep it all the way 100 with you, an open competition in which one quarterback keeps getting more first-team reps than the other is not actually open. It is a beauty pageant with a winner already selected backstage. The reps do matter. Who practices with the ones does matter. Who gets comfortable with Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fannin, and the new rookie receivers does matter. If Watson continues to get the majority of first-team work through OTAs and mandatory minicamp, he will have an enormous built-in advantage when training camp starts. And that is not fair to Shedeur. That is not a real competition. That is a predetermined conclusion wearing the costume of an open process. And that is the conversation that the Cleveland Browns ownership does not want to have publicly. Because at the end of the day, this is about more than football strategy. This is about what kind of franchise you are building. Starting Deshaun Watson in 2026 does not move the needle for the Cleveland Browns in any meaningful direction. If Watson is bad, which, based on everything we have seen, is the statistically more likely outcome, you have burned a year of Shedeur's development, wasted a season, and dragged an already suffering fan base through another cycle of false hope followed by inevitable collapse. As Sports Illustrated noted, the last time Watson completed a full NFL season was 2019, before the league even expanded its schedule from 16 to 17 games, before the 17-game schedule existed. That is how far back we have to go to find Watson finishing a season. If Watson is somehow good, and I mean genuinely, legitimately good, like Shady said, close to that Texans version, then what? You have 1 year of Watson before the contract expires, you have delayed Shedeur's growth, and you are right back in the same position asking the same questions in 2027. The Speakeasy panel asked the question themselves. If Watson has a good year, do you give him another bag? And McCoy's co-host brought up Kirk Cousins, nickeling and diming on one-year deals, while the franchise never actually commits to a real future. Is that what Cleveland wants? To be Kirk Cousins Nation 2.0? The only scenario where starting Watson makes unambiguous sense is if Shedeur Sanders is genuinely not ready. And based on the early OTA reports, the Rees quotes, the red zone connection to Davis, the en route to KC Concepcion, that the Browns posted on their official social media, Shedeur is not giving anyone a legitimate reason to say he is not ready. He is putting in work. He is learning the system. He is building chemistry with the new weapons. The signal caller who wins this starting job will be working with returning wide receivers Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, tight end Harold Fannin, and a pair of talented rookie pass catchers in KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston. That is a real receiving core. That is an offense that can actually function. Give Shedeur Sanders that offense. Give him the reps, give him the continuity, and let him cook. The ceiling of that version of the Cleveland Browns is infinitely higher than the ceiling of a 30-year-old, twice Achilles-repaired Deshaun Watson taking snaps under center for what might be the final year of his NFL career. I will say this one more time, and I will say it clearly. The Cleveland Browns have a young quarterback who worked his tail off, who earned starts under fire last season, who the offensive coordinator is openly praising, and who represents the actual future of this franchise. If they bench him for a vanity project designed to make ownership feel better about the worst trade in NFL history, they will regret it. The fans will not show up, the tickets will not sell, the energy in that building will be dead. And when Watson inevitably gets hurt or struggles, because the track record says he will, Shedeur will have lost a year of development that he can never get back. That is the game being played in Berea right now. And Dre Reports is going to be here to call it every single day, from OTAs all the way to week 1. No filter, no corporate talking points, no bowing down to ownership narratives. Just the truth. That is all I got for today's episode. But before you click away, I need something from you. If this video hit different, If you felt every single word I just laid out in your chest, smash that like button right now. Do not think about it. Just hit it. Because it tells YouTube this content matters. It tells YouTube to push it to every Browns fan, every Shedeur supporter, and every NFL follower who needs to hear the truth about what is happening in Cleveland. Drop a comment below and tell me, does Deshaun Watson start Week 1 for the Cleveland Browns? Or does Shedeur Sanders take back what is his? I want full takes in that comment section. No half measures. Tell me your reasoning. Tell me what the Browns should do. Tell me what you are going to do if Watson gets those Week 1 snaps. Are you buying tickets? Are you watching? I want to know. And if you are not subscribed to Dre Reports yet, if you somehow stumbled onto this channel today and you have not hit that subscribe button, what are you doing? Hit subscribe, turn on that notification bell, so that every time I drop a video covering this Browns quarterback situation, this Shedeur story, this entire 2026 NFL season, you are going to be the first to know. We are not leaving this story alone. We are following it to training camp, to preseason, to the first snap of Week 1 and beyond. I'm Dre Fiver. No filter, no cap, just facts. Peace.